Number 1. Rey's instant mastery. The sequel trilogy's biggest Force-related frustration centers on Rey's inexplicably rapid mastery of abilities that took other Jedi years to develop. Within mere days of learning the Force exists, Rey performs mind tricks on stormtroopers, defeats Kylo Ren in lightsaber combat, and lifts massive rock formations with ease. Compare this to Luke Skywalker's journey in the original trilogy. Despite training with Obi-Wan and later Yoda, Luke struggles with basic telekinesis throughout The Empire Strikes Back. He can barely lift his lightsaber from the snow, fails to lift his X-Wing from the Dagobah swamp, and loses his hand to Vader during their Cloud City duel. Even after additional training between films, Luke still requires the Emperor's intervention to finally defeat his father. Rey's abilities break established Force mechanics without proper explanation. In The Force Awakens, she successfully performs a Jedi mind trick on Stormtrooper JB-007, despite never witnessing the technique. Director J.J. Abrams later explained this as the Force downloading Kylo's abilities into Rey during their mental connection, but this concept appears nowhere in the film itself. The dyad explanation introduced in The Rise of Skywalker attempts to retroactively justify Rey's powers, suggesting her connection with Ben Solo allows shared abilities. However, this still doesn't explain why Rey can perform complex techniques she's never witnessed, while Ben, who trained under Luke for years, shows no similar rapid acquisition of new powers. Even Anakin Skywalker, the prophesied Chosen One with the highest midi-chlorian count ever recorded, required formal training. Despite his exceptional Force sensitivity, young Anakin still needed instruction from Obi-Wan and couldn't perform advanced techniques without guidance. Rey's instant mastery undermines the established importance of training, discipline, and mentorship that defined Jedi tradition across 6 previous films. Ready to explore the galaxy's deepest mysteries? Hit that new hype button, YouTube's latest feature for superfans, and join our community diving into every corner of Star Wars lore. Number 2. Luke's character. Assassination. Perhaps no sequel trilogy element enraged longtime fans more than Luke Skywalker's characterization in The Last Jedi. The optimistic farm boy who saw good in Darth Vader becomes a bitter hermit who considers murdering his sleeping nephew over a Force vision of potential darkness. Luke's defining characteristic across the original trilogy was his unwavering belief in redemption. He refused to abandon his father despite Vader's horrific crimes, including participating in the destruction of Alderaan, torturing Princess Leia, and freezing Han Solo in carbonite. Luke literally threw away his lightsaber rather than strike down the Emperor's apprentice, declaring, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." Yet, The Last Jedi asks audiences to believe this same Luke would ignite his lightsaber over his sleeping nephew because of a Force vision. While Luke claims it was merely a fleeting shadow, the scene shows him fully activating his weapon and contemplating murder. This directly contradicts his established character growth and the core themes of hope and redemption that defined his journey. Mark Hamill himself expressed reservations about this direction, famously stating he fundamentally disagreed with nearly every choice made for Luke in the film. Hamill argued that Luke would never give up, saying the character he knew would have walked across the galaxy to help his friends rather than abandon them on Ahch-To. The film attempts to explain Luke's exile through guilt over Ben Solo's fall, but this explanation requires Luke to abandon everything he learned about failure and redemption. In the original trilogy, Luke's failures only strengthened his resolve. The idea that training failure would break him completely contradicts his established resilience and optimistic nature that inspired an entire generation of fans. Number 3. Palpatine's ridiculous return. The opening crawl of The Rise of Skywalker drops perhaps the most shocking plot development in Star Wars history, with casual indifference. The dead speak. Somehow, Emperor Palpatine returned from his apparent death in Return of the Jedi, completely undermining Anakin's sacrifice and the original trilogy's conclusion. Palpatine's survival receives virtually no explanation within the film itself. The novelization mentions cloning and spirit transfer through Sith alchemy, but movies should stand alone without requiring supplementary material. The film shows clone bodies in vats on Exegol and mentions unnatural abilities, but never clearly explains how Palpatine survived being thrown down the Death Star 2's reactor shaft. This resurrection retroactively destroys Anakin Skywalker's redemption arc. Anakin's final act was saving his son and destroying his master, fulfilling the prophecy of the Chosen One who would bring balance to the Force. If Palpatine never truly died, then Anakin's sacrifice accomplished nothing, and the 6-film saga becomes meaningless setup for a villain who was always planning to return. The film compounds this problem by having Rey, not Anakin's lineage, deliver the final blow to Palpatine. While Force Ghost voices appear encouraging Rey, including Anakin's, he becomes a supporting character in his own prophetic destiny. The Chosen One prophecy, central to the prequel trilogy's narrative, gets transferred to Rey without explanation or proper setup. Furthermore, Palpatine's return raises uncomfortable questions about the intervening 30 years. If he was alive and rebuilding the Final Order fleet, why didn't he intervene during the First Order's rise? Why allow Snoke to serve as a proxy when he could have ruled directly? These plot holes undermine both the sequel trilogy's internal logic and the original trilogy's satisfying conclusion. Number 4. Hyperspace. Physics. Broken Admiral Holdo's hyperspace ramming maneuver in The Last Jedi creates one of the sequel trilogy's most visually stunning and narratively problematic moments. While undeniably spectacular, this kamikaze attack fundamentally breaks established hyperspace mechanics and raises questions about every previous space battle in Star Wars. For 40 years, hyperspace served as Star Wars' faster-than-light travel method, explicitly described as moving through an alternate dimension. Ships enter hyperspace to avoid colliding with objects in normal space, which is why careful calculations are necessary before jumping. Han Solo warns Luke in A New Hope that traveling through hyperspace without proper calculations could result in flying right through a star or bouncing too close to a supernova. The Holdo maneuver suggests ships can impact targets while transitioning between normal space and hyperspace, creating a devastating weapon that would revolutionize space warfare. If hyperspace ramming is possible, why didn't the Rebel Alliance use this tactic against the Death Star? A single A-wing traveling at light speed would theoretically carry more destructive force than the entire Rebel fleet's combined firepower. Director Rian Johnson later explained that the maneuver required precise timing and circumstances, making it unreliable. However, the film provides no indication of special conditions or timing requirements. The sequence suggests Holdo simply aimed the Raddus and jumped to hyperspace, making the attack appear easily replicable. This scene also undermines countless heroic sacrifices throughout the saga by suggesting similar tactics could have saved lives. Every pilot who died in conventional attacks becomes questionable when hyperspace ramming exists as an option. The rise of Skywalker attempts damage control by having characters dismiss hyperspace ramming as 1 in a million odds, but this feels like desperate retconning rather than genuine explanation given the maneuver's obvious effectiveness. Number 5. Snoke's wasted potential. Supreme Leader. Snoke represented the sequel trilogy's greatest missed opportunity for compelling villainy. Introduced as a mysterious dark side user, powerful enough to corrupt Ben Solo and command the First Order, Snoke promised answers about the galaxy's state 30 years after Return of the Jedi. Instead, he became a plot device discarded without exploration or consequence. Snoke's design and presentation suggested ancient evil and vast knowledge. His massive holographic appearances in The Force Awakens and his ornate throne room in The Last Jedi portrayed a figure of immense power and influence. Actor Andy Serkis brought gravitas to the role, creating a menacing presence that implied deep connections to galactic history and Sith lore. The character's abrupt death in The Last Jedi serves the immediate narrative purpose of elevating Kylo Ren to Supreme Leader, but eliminates any possibility of exploring Snoke's origins or motivations. Audiences never learn how he discovered Ben Solo, why he chose to corrupt Luke's student, or how he acquired his Force abilities without traditional Sith training. The Rise of Skywalker retroactively reveals Snoke as Palpatine's artificial creation, but this explanation raises more questions than it answers. If Palpatine controlled Snoke completely, why allow him independent thought and planning? Why not simply rule the First Order directly from Exegol? The revelation reduces Snoke to a sophisticated puppet rather than a genuine threat, making his commanding presence feel hollow in retrospect. The sequel trilogy desperately needed Snoke to serve as a bridge between the original trilogy's conclusion and the new conflict. His mysterious nature could have explained how dark side knowledge survived the Emperor's death, how the First Order acquired Imperial resources, and why the New Republic failed to maintain peace. Instead, his quick disposal left these crucial plot elements unexplored, forcing the Rise of Skywalker into awkward explanations. Number 6. Knights of Nothing. The Knights of Ren represent perhaps the sequel trilogy's most egregious example of promising concepts abandoned without development. Introduced in Rey's Force vision during The Force Awakens, these dark side warriors appeared to be Ben Solo's loyal followers and potentially significant antagonists for future films. Early marketing materials and concept art suggested the Knights would serve as elite dark side enforcers, trained by Kylo Ren and fanatically devoted to his cause. Their medieval-inspired designs and brutal weapons promised exciting lightsaber battles and exploration of dark-side philosophy beyond traditional Sith teachings. The group's name implies connection to Ren himself, suggesting personal relationships worth exploring. The Last Jedi completely ignores the Knights of Ren, never mentioning them despite focusing extensively on Kylo Ren's character development and rise to Supreme Leader. This absence feels particularly glaring during scenes where Kylo struggles with isolation and leadership challenges, situations where loyal followers would provide both practical support and meaningful character interactions. The Rise of Skywalker finally features the Knights in action, but only as generic obstacles for Ben Solo to overcome during his redemption arc. They receive no dialogue, character development, or explanation of their relationship with Ben beyond basic loyalty. The film treats them as disposable minions rather than characters with personal stakes in the galactic conflict. The Knights' final battle against Ben Solo lacks emotional weight because audiences never understand their bond or motivations. Are they angry about his betrayal? Confused by his turn to the light? Simply following programming? The film provides no insight into their thoughts or feelings, making their deaths feel meaningless rather than tragic. This waste extends beyond the Knights themselves to what they could have represented. As former students of Luke Skywalker who chose to follow Ben into darkness, they could have explored themes of failed mentorship, corrupted loyalty, and the difficulty of redemption that would have strengthened the trilogy's thematic coherence. Number 7. Finn's Forgotten Arc. John Boyega's Finn begins the sequel trilogy as one of its most compelling characters, a former stormtrooper questioning his conditioning and discovering his moral compass. Unfortunately, subsequent films abandon this fascinating concept in favor of generic sidekick roles that waste both the character's potential and Boyega's considerable screen presence. The Force Awakens establishes Finn as FN-2187, a stormtrooper who breaks his conditioning after witnessing the Jakku village massacre. This setup promises exploration of stormtrooper psychology, the First Order's child soldier recruitment, and the moral complexity of soldiers raised to serve authoritarian regimes. Finn's decision to help Poe Dameron escape and later rescue Rey demonstrates emerging heroism despite lacking Force sensitivity or special lineage. The Last Jedi shifts Finn into comic relief, pairing him with newcomer Rose Tico for a subplot that serves minimal narrative purpose. While the Canto Bight sequence attempts to explore war profiteering themes, it removes Finn from the main conflict and reduces his agency. His confrontation with Captain Phasma provides some payoff for their previous encounters, but their battle feels rushed and lacks the emotional resonance their history deserved. The film's handling of Finn's attempted sacrifice during the Battle of Crate exemplifies the trilogy's inconsistent character development. Rose prevents his heroic death, claiming, "We save what we love," but this moment undermines Finn's growth towards selfless heroism while providing no clear alternative direction for his character journey. The Rise of Skywalker relegates Finn to Rey's concerned friend, occasionally hinting at Force sensitivity but never exploring this development meaningfully. The film introduces other former stormtroopers like Janna, creating opportunities to explore Finn's unique background and potential leadership role, but these characters receive minimal screen time and development. Boyega himself expressed frustration with this direction, noting that Finn's character was pushed to the side in favor of other storylines. Number 8. Plot consistency chaos. The sequel trilogy's greatest structural flaw lies in its complete lack of overarching narrative planning, resulting in jarring tonal shifts, contradictory character development, and plot threads that lead nowhere. Unlike the original and prequel trilogies, which followed George Lucas's unified vision, the sequels feel like 3 separate films awkwardly forced into trilogy format. The Force Awakens establishes mystery boxes around Rey's parentage, Snoke's identity, and the First Order's rapid rise, promising future revelations. The Last Jedi systematically dismantles these mysteries, declaring Rey's parents junk traders and killing Snoke without explanation. The Rise of Skywalker then reverses these decisions, revealing Rey as Palpatine's granddaughter and Snoke as the Emperor's artificial creation. This constant course correction creates narrative whiplash and undermines character development. Rey's journey from nobody to nobody to ultimate somebody feels arbitrary rather than organic. Each film contradicts its predecessor's themes and conclusions, preventing meaningful character growth across the trilogy's runtime. The trilogy's treatment of Force philosophy demonstrates this inconsistency perfectly. The Force Awakens presents traditional Jedi training as necessary through Luke's exile and Rey's initial struggles. The Last Jedi suggests anyone can access the Force, showing the stable boy on Canto Bight moving his broom telekinetically. The rise of Skywalker returns to bloodline importance, making Rey powerful specifically because of her Palpatine heritage. Technical inconsistencies compound narrative problems throughout. The First Order appears completely defeated at The Last Jedi's conclusion, reduced to a handful of ships pursuing the Resistance. The rise of Skywalker opens with them somehow controlling the galaxy again, requiring significant off-screen developments that the film never explains or acknowledges. These problems stem from Disney's decision to proceed without a complete trilogy outline, instead allowing each director to follow their individual vision. While creative freedom can produce interesting results, the sequel trilogy demonstrates the critical importance of unified storytelling in multi-part narratives that audiences expect to form coherent wholes. May the Force guide your journey through our galaxy of content. Hit that hype button to join our passionate community and keep these essential Star Wars discussions alive.